Okay, sorry guys, I again forgot to unmute my mic because my hotkey wasn't working. Okay, now there's audio. So again, I will start again. Hi guys, welcome. Delta 2 today. The one, if it's successful today, the 100th consecutive successful flight, and that's pretty cool. It's the 381st, so 381. This is flight 381 of a Delta rocket, and it's flying in the 7425 dash 10 configuration. I'll show you what it means in a second. Over here, this is the payload user manual of the Delta 2. As you can see, not this one, but the second one is the version they're using today. So basically, it means the 4 that they're using. The 7 is the one of the Delta 2 rocket. It's always been a 7 for the last 10 years. But the 4 basically means that it's it uses 4 rocket boosters, and the 25 is the second stage, and the 10 basically means that it is using a 10-foot diameter fairing. And as you can see, the 4 solids are not in a 120 degrees apart. They are slightly not in line, and that's because basically the boosters attachments are divided into 9, and so if you use four of the 9 attachments, they don't align in the 120 degrees, or actually they're not 90 degrees apart. So the one is probably 120, and then we have 60 and 60 and 90 in between 2, or somewhere around that. Quick maths, I can't really figure it out. So we're still in a T-5 minute hold, and yeah, it's gonna take an hour before it's releasing the satellite. And yeah, so this is currently what they're doing. They're talking, yeah, they're actually rambling about the satellite, what it's going to do with the rocket. But this is actually called, the rocket is called the workhorse because it has done so many missions. It was originally designed for GPS satellites, but it ended up launching 2 rovers to Mars, a few landers, even a few satellites to Mars, and it's really flexible because you don't have to put 9 solids on there. You can also put 4 or 3 on. So, and also they're very flexible with their using of their 3rd stage. So yeah, and so this is the explanation of the digits. So 10 means, the 10 at the end means the fairing they're using. The 0 means no 3rd stage, and then the solid motors, the digit, and yeah. Okay, I had a quick blackout. That's weird. It doesn't really like when I use this, apparently. I'm still live, yeah. So yeah. Are there questions? Yeah. So what it's basically going to do is it's launching, dropping off its booster, dropping off its first stage, second stage will separate, then it will fire, the firing will separate, it will enter a parking orbit, then they will wait 40 minutes, about 40 minutes, then they will reignite the second stage engine, and then they will enter the final orbit, separate the satellite, then the second stage will do another burn, it will adjust its orbit slightly, and then it will release a few CubeSats. So yeah, that's what's in store for us today. What about the second stage does the 25 refer to? It refers to the usual of the RS or RS. No, the engine they use. I can look it up again, but it basically says that it's using this second stage, which they don't really use a different second stage. If it still wants to download, I can show you. By the way, sound of my mic is okay, right? Or is it too loud? I adjusted it yesterday and I found something that was working, but I'm not sure. And since I can't listen to myself, otherwise it's looping. Okay, that's great news. Yeah. Let's see. T minus. Okay, they're counting down to T minus 4 minutes, and they will be holding again. So let's skip ahead. 20. Yeah, the 25. It's always a 2 and then a 0 or a 25, but this configuration doesn't have a third stage, so actually this says 25, but it has to be 20 because it's not using a... The 2 is actually standing for this second stage, but they don't have a different second stage, so it's always a 2. And this rocket has a 0 instead of a 5, because a 5 says that it has a star sort of motor, but right now it has only the Aerojet AJ-10 engine, which uses hypergolic propellants, by the way. So nothing fancy. Well, nothing fancy. It's just as soon as the fuels come in contact, they burn. And I believe it's even a pressure-fed rocket engine, so it's not really a difficult one, but it's really reliable. Yeah, so that's what the 25 refers to, but this is a 20, a 20. So yeah, ICE-Sat2, it's gonna enter a sun-synchronous orbit, and every 90 days it will have it will do a whole scan of the Earth. It has 5 laser beams, and as you can see, they actually can see the change in altitude, and or actually the change in height of the ice, and this doesn't work.
Environment are critical to understand. Satellite will also measure height.
So yeah, I'll just mute it for a while. So it will basically not only measure the sunlight, or the sunlight will not only measure the height of the ice, but also height of different vegetation and even housing. They can measure, and they can sort of create a 3D height map of the Earth, and they can also find where the ice is disappearing and where it's growing. And this is also gonna end the last Thor rocket, the Delta II was based on a Thor rocket, which was used back in the day, and this will also close the chapter of that rocket, the rocket family, because as soon as we lift off, we will have the last ever flight of a Thor derived vehicle, and then next year we will have the Delta IV single sticks retiring, and then in 2022, so in 4 years, 5 years maybe, we'll have the final Delta IV heavy liftoff, and then even the Deltas will be finished launching, and then they will move over to Volcn. Can you also measure the thickness of the ice as well as its height? No, they only measure the height. With the laser, they can't penetrate the ground. You will need microwaves or radar for that. You can't penetrate the soil. It will just reflect off the ice, because essentially they're using light, and they can't see under the ice. So I'll
let y'all hang in there. It looks like he's might be leaning in there to kick things off here.
To activate and display record on change.
In addition,
so they're going to have
his
the
poll, big reason for his poll is that he's actually going to be reporting out
the
in the
poll
the
soon.
primary
They're
poll, the
going to
last poll
poll
of the day
every
that happens at
station that is
7 minutes.
involved in
So he's polling the
rocket
NASA team
launch,
so that he can be accountable and report out to the NASA launch conductor, who's United Launch Alliance's Scott Barney.
That's team. This is NLM. Stand by for the final.
And here we go. Tim Dunn, our NASA launch manager.
Poll. We
What's the last Delta IV Heavy gonna launch? They're gonna launch a secret satellite for the NROL.
Working that issue right now.
It's gonna be an NROL
So it
launch.
sounds like Tim's going to push his poll just a little bit. Sounds like the team may be working some bottle temperature issues. We'll hear a little bit more about that once the team evaluates that. Again, that's exactly what these holes are built in for, is to give the team a chance to look at those things, make sure they come within their requirements. So we'll kind of keep an ear out and see when Tim comes back for that poll.
Yeah, while we're waiting, I want to go ahead and actually throw to a
profile
so
we'll have a slight delay in launch
from United Launch Alliance of the Delta
Gives
II
me
mission
time
today.
to
So let's go ahead and take a
retweet
look
my
and see
tweet.
what the whole flight of today's mission is.
3, 2, 1. Engines start and liftoff. Delta II rocket.
The Delta RS-27A main engine and 4 solid rocket motors ignite to lift the final Delta II rocket away from the pad. Shortly after liftoff, Delta begins a pitch over to attain the proper flight path while minimizing the pressure the vehicle experiences during flight. The Delta II reaches Mach 1, the speed of sound, at 30 seconds. At 1 minute 23 seconds, the 4 ground-lit solid rocket motors are jettisoned. 4 minutes 24 seconds into flight, cutoff of the main engine, or Miko 1, occurs. 8 seconds later, the Delta II separation system activates, releasing the first stage. The vehicle now weighs a little less than 6% of what it did at liftoff. 6 seconds after first stage separation, the second stage engine ignites. At 5 minutes, the payload fairing is jettisoned. Second stage engine cutoff, or SECO 1, occurs at 10 minutes 53 seconds. The second stage and
so actually this rocket has one main engine and 2 vernier engines. and you'll see the main engine shut down first, and then 4 seconds later the verniers will shut down. And I think, I'm not sure, I think that is because shutdown of a rocket engine gives quite a jolt to a rocket. So they will keep the verniers burning to also keep the fuel settled for a tiny bit. And also they can dampen out any attitude adjustments made by the rocket engine shutting down, and then eventually they will run out of fuel and they have to shut down. Then they wait for 5 seconds for everything to settle.
We're still
then they separate,
on,
and then they
NASA
fire
launch
the
manager
second
Tim
stage
Dunn.
again.
He will be coming in at some point in the near future to update us, but for now we're going to kind of just we're going to move into a holding pattern on our end just to kind of wait and see what they're doing, because obviously we're taking our cues from the launch teams today. Launch teams being a big topic of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've said we a lot. I want to talk a little bit about the launch teams that are out here. We've got Northrop Grumman, which is the spacecraft side. They constructed the spacecraft. Also Goddard Space Flight Center from NASA, a big part of that, the science there. We've got the U.S. Air Force. We have NASA Launch Services Program, and then we also have the United Launch Alliance. Obviously, it's their Delta II this morning. So what all are these teams doing to kind of bring this together?
So you're absolutely right, Joshua. We use we a lot when it comes to launching a mission, and it does take a huge...
So I'm going to mute it again. So basically what they're talking about is that the satellite was made by Orbital ATK, but Orbital ATK was taken over by Northrop Grumman just a few months ago. So yeah, what they... Yeah, let me just check on this, if I'm actually saying that correctly. Yeah, it was built by Orbital ATK, but Orbital ATK was bought by Northrop Grumman a few months ago, so now Northrop Grumman is saying that we built the satellite. Because they kind of did, they kind of didn't, but not get on that side. But you can clearly see where the fuel is on this rocket. You can see the blue part, like this blue part. That's where the RP1 is at the moment, and you can see the white. That's actually ice. That's the liquid oxygen of the rocket. So you can also clearly see where the tank ends. It has this sharp line, and it's not coloring. It's purely ice of the water vapor in the air condensing and freezing onto the rocket. And you'll see that fall off in the actually at engine startup and at the first phase of flight. So as you can see, the 4 solids, they actually are numbered. I saw there was a number 9 on it. So at the bottom of the base of the rocket, it's not all the slots are numbered from 1 till 9, and I believe they're actually using 9 to 4 and probably it's in a weird pattern. So also the number on the solid rocket corresponds with the number on the rocket. So they can actually, it's easy to fit it because number 9 belongs to number 9. So we have a launch setback. Now our new T0 is at 1 minute past the hour.
But on a grander scheme, there's a lot of things that can cause delays for launch. We've discussed weather already. Obviously,
Okay, so they actually they have some problems with bottle temperatures. That is not bottle temperatures. If I'm correct, they refer to the temperatures of the helium bottles. So there's helium inside to pressurize the tanks, and they're having a issue with those. I hope it's not going to get scrubbed today, because that means they will move to tomorrow, which means there will be 2 rocket launches tomorrow, which will be very fun, but we have a PSLV and a Delta II.
Force range operations, and they monitor also out in the ocean areas, because of course we're launching due south out of Vandenberg, and so we want to make sure personnel safety there. So we have a box that we kind of call the box that we have to lift off and fly into, and we want to make sure that nobody's in that box. So the United States Air Force monitors that to make sure we don't have boats. You know, you wouldn't think about it, but sometimes boats get in the box and cause a delay, and we have to work around those things. But one unique thing out here at Vandenberg Air Force Station was Vandenberg Air Force Base was built around the railroad tracks, and so we actually have Amtrak who runs through the base, and actually pretty close to Slick 2 there where the Delta II is, and we have had in past years a train come through, and we've had to work around our launch countdown on that. So another unique feature that could possibly delay a launch. Hopefully we don't have that today, but that is a feature here at Vandenberg.
Sure, yeah, and as we've been talking about, we have what looks like a new launch time for us. We're counting down towards that, and we want to emphasize again that there's nothing wrong with the launch vehicle.
Oh, absolutely not.
These are not issues. It's just that we're not quite ready to launch.
That's correct.
There are things that take time, and they have to kind of get in the right ranges
and this is
to be ready to fly. So things are going well. There's no real concerns. It's just a matter of...
It's also why they have the built-in holds, because they don't have to go back to some state. They just hold in the state. The teams have time to figure out what's wrong, and they don't need to change anything, because sometimes rocket just counts down to 0. And if something happens, they need to hold, and they need to change their what's the smoke? It's basically the liquid oxygen in the tank. It's warming up, because outside the liquid oxygen is at minus 270 degrees, and basically the oxygen is boiling, and then it turns into a gas, and to prevent it from overpressurizing the tank and exploding, they vent it overboard. And at the moment the rocket is doing something what's called they are actually the same amount of liquid oxygen is going in as is evaporating. I forgot the name for that, but it's what they're doing right now. It's that's what they do with all cryogenic fuels. They come up. They fuel the vehicle to about to a certain level of liquid oxygen in the tanks and liquid hydrogen, and then they measure the amount of fuel that's evaporating, and then they they refill that at the same level.
The temperatures of the rocket and the structure within their requirements. So once we started LOX loading, the team ran some quick calculations along with the ambient air temperatures outside, the temperature of the RP1 fuel, and came up with a 63-minute window this evening. And so that 63-minute window is what we have available inside the 2-hour 34-minute spacecraft window. And what the team can do, and we've heard this just recently, is we can move that window around inside that 234. And so that's what NASA Launch Manager Tim Dunn and Launch Director Tom Heater have done, is they've reset that window to 1302 Zulu for our T0 time.
So we had the spacecraft requirements, we had the rocket ability and requirements, and then there's other things too that factor in. Like there was an issue deep into our launch window today with some collision avoidance.
It's swinging.
You'll hear the term COLAs. We're just making sure that on launch that there's nothing that
Or it's the camera. No, the rocket is actually
impact the
swinging.
spacecraft, during ascent, and so that actually, I think that cut off
That's
the
fun.
back in.
It did.
No, it's
Early on in the count that we had a slightly longer window than the 63 minutes that we're identifying. I think there were 8 COLA cutouts, what we refer to as cutouts or opportunities that we couldn't launch. They were on the back
it's so
side of that
stupid.
window.
There's literally a term for keeping the fuel at the same level and kind of fueling it at the same rate it's evaporating. But I forgot how it's called.
Or something.
It just escaped me. I don't know.
Update you all. You're seeing on screen the final Delta II
So now
mission launching ICE-Sat2.
we are basically
I believe we're targeting
waiting. I have some rockets.
602
These are actually made out of paper, and the Saturn V is not from paper, not made of paper, but it's the Lego Saturn V. This is a GSLV Indian rocket, Mark II and Mark III Indian rockets, the Falcon Heavy, without the second stage. That's over here. Then we have the Delta IV Heavy with the fairing just on the ground.
So Vandenberg Air Force Base, and in particular Space Launch Complex 2, Slick 2, in spending time with some of the folks who have been around a long time with the Delta II in particular, like there's a lot of fond memories about the location, about the rocket itself. So tell me more about the history here.
Well, you know, as we were talking, Delta II, this final launch is very emotional for the teams. It is the final one, as we heard, Delta 381.
Is it topping?
But,
You're my hero. It's topping the fuel. Yeah, that's what they call. They top the fuel. They basically keep it at the same level. I know they do it with the Delta IV, with the Delta IV Heavy. They top off the fuel, and that allows them to actually. Yeah, you're my hero. It's indeed topping the fuel. It's to keep it's to prevent the fuel boiling off, or actually, but because if they wouldn't top off the fuel, basically the amount of liquid oxygen in the tank would actually decrease, which means that they would have more fuel than oxidizer, and that will mean that basically the engine won't have enough oxygen to burn. So at the end of the rocket burn, it will just shut down because it doesn't have any rocket shuttle. It's going great. I'm not going to show it yet, but it's a great model. It's about this. It's this height, the tower only, and I still need to do the whole swing arm. We're gonna do the launch readiness poll, so let me just...
We've got great weather. Range is clear. Spacecraft is doing superbly. Upper level winds have done really well.
Cool. Yeah,
recently,
cool.
We're green till 1335 Zulu. Great news there. We've coordinated a new T0 of 1302Z with the range, and that has been approved. And we have evaluated the second stage bottles, both helium and nitrogen. Nitrogen is back in temp, and we're waiting for helium to come back in very shortly. So we are in good shape right now to proceed toward count. So with that, I'd like to conduct our launch readiness poll, beginning with NASA CE.
NASA CE, go.
SMA.
SMA's go.
SMD.
SMD is go.
So we're going to hear
Godspeed,
from every station if they're go or not.
NASA MIM.
NASA MIM is go.
LSP. LSP is go. NLM copies. The NASA team is go for the ICE-Sat2 mission on Delta II.
Awesome. So there you go. Tim Dunn concluding his poll. Not terribly long, but again, making sure that we got to make sure that we get everybody on the same page. We're all ready to fly.
Making sure that team, like we talked that team, right? Making sure the whole team is together and ready to go. And Tim is our representative to Scott Barney, the launch conductor at ULA,
So yeah,
to give the
indeed
final
we
vote for the NASA
have
management team and
a
the spacecraft team.
go
And I can just tell you,
I
sitting
thought
here,
it was
it's exciting
just
to
for
hear
the
all those
spacecraft,
goes. And everybody's ready to go. And, you know, that just means we're ready to start progressing into the terminal count. What we refer to as terminal count is the last 4 minutes.
But so yeah, they're refueling the helium bottles with helium now. So the if they ask me where to go, yeah, we are definitely go.
The spacecraft's in good shape.
But what I was talking about is that if you don't have enough oxygen and your engine shuts down early, it's really bad, because at the end of the burn, your thrust to weight ratio, so basically the weight of your rocket has decreased so much that you have a very big acceleration at the end of your burn, and if you basically shut down early, it means you miss out on a lot of delta V, and sometimes it can mean that you almost don't make it to orbit. That's what happened with a Cygnus launching on a Atlas V, the Atlas V booster. So the first stage shut down 4 seconds too early, which meant that the basically meant that the Centaur second stage needed to burn for 1 minute and a few seconds more, and it almost ran out of fuel, because when it did its deorbit burn, it couldn't finish the deorbit burn because it basically ran out of fuel halfway through.
On the Pacific coast, we are right now at about L-9 minutes 30 seconds and counting. Still at T-minus 4 minutes and holding. Again, that's all part of the plan. We're just proceeding through the countdown. This is a very choreographed.
So at about T minus, or actually L minus, because they use 2 different clocks here. They use L minus and T minus. T minus is actually basically what all the computers run on, and they currently are holding at T minus 4 minute, and the L minus clock is still running down to their actually launch time. And at L minus 6 minutes, you'll probably hear them pulling everybody for the rocket, and then we will hear if we're a go or not.
Things are looking really good for us to come out of this hold in about 4 minutes and proceed towards a count at 6:02 a.m.
Yeah, you get a chance to see on screen a variety of our control rooms around the base here, where people are monitoring systems. So everybody that you see there is a part of the process. They get to claim a piece of success today, which has got to be a great feeling. Mick, you've had that experience before.
Let me see.
What are they going through in these last few minutes? What are they experiencing? Is it stress? Is it?
I think the team is focused. That's I like to use that term, because we are down in that terminal count area, getting ready to pick it up. We are very focused, looking at everything, but we're also excited. Launch is an exciting moment, an exciting time. You know, we worked many years to get to this point with ICE-Sat2. We started work with the spacecraft customer roughly 7 years ago to get to this point. So launch countdown is an exciting time for everybody that's involved, but it takes many years.
Offline. Am I offline?
To get there.
Yeah, you'll have to excuse me. My train of thought got cut off. I heard Tim Dunn chime in, and he was actually declaring that we have those temperatures now back when we need them to be there. So that's a great sign. That's great news. That means that, as predicted, we're now at a point where we think we're ready to fly. That final pull will be coming up here in about the next 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think the team is ready.
Hello,
we'll hear,
it's me.
Scott Barney talking to his engineering team and the NASA launch management team. And coming out of that hold, we hope to hit proceed to launch from.
Okay, this is weird. I use OBS to live stream. It says that my export bit rate is okay, and then YouTube is nope, it's not okay.
Status check to proceed with terminal count. Report go, no go. Talker. Go.
Oh, there we go.
Prop 1.
Go.
Prop 2.
Go.
PEA.
Go.
EEA.
Go.
BP.
Go.
SCM.
Go.
SYS.
Go.
FAC.
Go.
ATC3.
Go.
Timer.
Go.
HYE.
Go.
FMA.
Go.
SSC.
Go.
SSP.
Go.
TM1.
Go.
TM2.
Go.
VE.
Go.
ATC2.
Go.
VSE.
Go.
Go.
OSM.
Go.
Go.
FACA.
Go.
Go.
GE.
Go.
RC.
Go.
Clear to proceed.
NASA TM.
Go.
USO.
Go.
Go.
AC.
Go.
Launch Director.
LC, you have permission to launch.
Proceeding with the count. Note to personnel, switch to channel 15 after liftoff is confirmed for pad securing.
As an observer, like, it just gets your heart racing, it gets you a little bit excited.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm excited.
All good sounds.
All good sounds, and especially that last one from Tom Heater, launch director, there giving the concurrence to proceed to launch. Again,
so yeah,
exciting to hear the team
we are go.
has had everything in configuration and ready
Okay,
to go.
so
and looking forward to this. We're about 1 minute and 45 seconds before we
great
pick up the
happy
count.
dance.
We actually should
Good
get a word
afternoon
from
from
our spacecraft
Poland.
team
Good
here in just a
afternoon
second,
from Holland.
declaring that they're also fully ready to proceed.
So yeah, they're ready to go.
Minus 5 hours, 30 minutes.
NSC reports spacecraft is configured for launch.
Roger.
Yes.
LC, spacecraft is configured for launch.
Go, 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 go.
That's another major milestone for the team. Is spacecraft has been verified that they're configured for launch, meaning they're on internal power. They've switched from
So yeah, actually,
ground power to
tomorrow
their
is going to be,
internal
there's going to be
batteries,
another launch.
which
It's going to
means
be
they
an
are now
Indian
ready
launch,
to
and
proceed
I'm
and
also
get
really
onto
excited
orbit.
about that one
That's
because
a huge milestone. So
we
again,
don't
excitement here that
see
we've
them
gone through the
often,
polls
but
and heard the team's
yeah,
ready,
I'm also
the
covering
spacecraft
that
team's
one.
ready, the team's coming
So
together,
come back tomorrow.
and we're looking forward to getting into the count here in just under a minute.
Yeah, so again, we'll be coming
I
out of
will
this 4-minute,
just before
the
terminal countdown, we'll just shut up and turn up the sound, and
as part of the
we'll talk
normal
again
countdown,
after
a regular,
fairing separation.
a choreographed countdown. It's only 10 minutes long. Today we went a little bit long. That's part of the plan. That's okay. That's what it's there for. And so we'll be coming out of that shortly. A pretty active last few minutes. You'll get a chance to hear some of the verifications of various systems being ready, making sure that everything is. It's really just a confirmation.
Yeah. I'll turn up the sound and I'll just
finalizing
shut
the
up.
configurations. Things are going to move pretty quickly here as soon as we come out of the hold. And as I said, they're just finalizing, making sure they're all ready to go. They've given their goes, and this is just the final configurations to put the Delta II rocket into its final area for liftoff.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to actually see that now here in about 4, 3, 2, 1. That should be L minus 4 minutes and counting. L minus 4 minutes and counting. T minus 4 minutes and counting. Again, both those clocks are aligned now, headed to that liftoff time of 6:02 Pacific time.
Active.
First stage internal.
So they move to internal power, which is.
So we hear the teams configuring.
Absolutely. Yeah, again, you're hearing those verifications coming in.
Sorry.
So Mick, there's a big milestone that you have it's dear to your heart that comes up here in these last few minutes. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we're hoping to hear over the net here Greenboard, which is a throwback to our Apollo and Mercury days, where the team looks at all their configurations and everything goes green, and the launch conductor's console, all the lights turn green, and we hear the call out for Greenboard, which is a major milestone to say we are configured, everything's ready, let's get off and fly.
Awesome. So the other thing that's going to happen here is that when we get to after launch, you're going to hear Patrick Moore's voice. He is the United Launch Alliance launch commentator, and he'll be walking you through the first 11 or so minutes of flight. It's a very active 11 minutes.
So we just got confirmation from Tim Dunn, our NASA launch manager. He reported to Tom Heater, launch director, that NASA is go for launch, and all vehicle configurations are finishing up and getting ready to support this 6:02 liftoff.
Yeah, absolutely. So in these first 11 minutes, you'll hear Patrick Moore talking about, we have the booster, Jettison, we have the first stage completion, and that jettisons. We have the first second stage ignition, as we saw in the profile video.
Right.
There's a total of 4 burns of the second stage this morning, and then we'll have the payload fairing separate, and then the second stage will shut down for the first time, and that's all done in about 11 minutes, which sounds like a lot of time and no time at all.
It moves pretty quickly. Once the vehicle lifts off the pad, and gets on its way through ascent. You know.
So yeah, the
first
next
stage,
tomorrow
does its
will
job,
be
and
the
GEMs,
piece of
graphite
the
epoxy motors, and,
core loan, which
they
means
separate
no
and
extra
come off.
boosters added
The
on the
RS-27
outside.
throttles down,
Which is
and,
great.
then
That's
stage
one of the
separates
rarest
from the whole stack.
PSLVs.
We then have
we'll
payload
see
fairing jettison, and then second stage engine
So yeah, 4
start,
burns
or
of the
S1,
second stage of this rocket
and
today.
that'll fire getting
3 to
ICE-Sat2
get
into its
the
initial
satellites
orbit,
into orbit, and 1 to be
Miko
orbited.
1, or second stage engine cutoff, for our coast phase over Madagascar, and getting ready to pick up telemetry there, and then getting ready for that second burn, for that basically a 6-second burn, just to get ICE-Sat2 where it needs to be, going into that polar, almost nearly circular orbit at roughly 92 degrees inclination over the poles. So.
Yeah, we're at T-minus 1 minute and counting. We're going to let you just enjoy this. Again, you're watching live coverage of the final launch of the Delta II, lifting ICE-Sat2 into space this morning.
Water flow. 45.
LC, launch enabled to flight.
Flight.
ATC-3, main power disable on.
On.
35.
Hydraulics are go.
30.
Status check.
Go Delta 2.
Go ICE-Sat2.
20. 15.
Topping, go.
14.
Green board.
13.
There's
12,
that green board call.
11,
That is great.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Liftoff, yes!
Liftoff of the final Delta II, launching nearly 3 decades of science research and exploration missions, lifting ICE-Sat2 on a quest to explore the polar ice sheets of our constantly changing home planet.
Now 27 seconds into flight. 30 seconds in, Mach 1, Delta 2 is now supersonic. Continuing to see good chamber pressure on the RS-27, both veneer engines as well. Seeing consistent fuel and oxidizer injector pressures as well. And at T plus 46 seconds, max Q, maximum dynamic pressure.
Woohoo! Liftoff! Woo! Go, 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 go!
And at 57 seconds in, we have web burnout.
Are you kidding me?
Out on the solid rocket motors, seeing good responses.
It's okay.
And we have burnout on all 4 motors.
Jettison of the motors.
And Delta will hold on to those motors for an additional 20 seconds prior to jettison.
So they hold on to the rocket motors actually to clear them of...
Now 1 minute 20 seconds in, standing by for motor jettison. And we have good indication of jettison of all 4 solid rocket motors. Now 1 minute 30 seconds into flight. Continuing to see good chamber pressure on the RS-27, good chamber pressures on both veneer engines as well.
So you will
stable
see
pressures
the
on the
rocket
fuel and oxidizer injector
expand
pressures.
And actually...
Vehicle body rates looking stable.
Because of the decrease in air pressure, the rocket plume will expand, and I think it will...
Now 1 minute 55 seconds into flight.
Because it's only one engine burning, so it's really symmetrical.
And 2 minutes 10 seconds in. And the booster bi-level charge is fired to maintain necessary ullage pressure in the booster. LOX tank ullage pressure response looks good. 2 minutes 25 seconds in. The booster is now beginning powered flight guidance. Body rate response looks good. And just under 2 minutes now remaining until Miko.
So you will see Miko, which is the engine shut-off, and then the verniers will fire for...
And at 2 minutes 45 seconds into flight, continuing to see good performance on the RS-27 main engine, and good chamber pressures on both veneer engines as well.
So the verniers will burn for a few more seconds to keep control of the vehicle.
Vehicle body rates remain very stable. Now passing 3 minutes into flight.
Yeah. So as you see, the plume gradually expands.
Continuing to see good ullage pressures on the fuel and oxidizer tanks. Good fuel and oxidizer inlet pressures as well. And now 1 minute remaining until Miko. Three minutes, 30 seconds into flight. RS-27 continuing to perform well. Stable chamber pressure and fuel and oxidizer injector pressures, and seeing good stable pressures on both veneer engines.
It's really nice. It's one of the prettiest plumes I've seen.
Now passing 4 minutes into flight. Approximately 20 seconds remaining until engine cutoff. And booster has stopped active guidance in preparation for Miko. Standing by for engine cutoff.
So you'll see engine cutoff.
And we have cutoff of the RS-27. Vernier engine continuing to burn. As expected, standing by for vernier engine cutoff. And we have good vernier engine cutoff.
It's like a combat now. Yeah, it is. Separation.
And now 4 minutes, 45 seconds into flight. We've seen good good separation of stage 1 and 2 and good ignition on the second stage.
Ooh, it's already ignited.
4 minutes, 55 seconds into flight. Chamber pressure on the AJ-10 looks good. Body rates looking good.
Cool. Now we're coming up
and we have good indication of fairing jettison.
Yeah. You can also see part of the fairing there. Really
and this first burn of today's mission will last approximately 6 minutes, 15 seconds.
Okay. Wow, that was a cool launch. That is actually... Yeah, that was the last Delta II. It's still firing, but... Yeah, wow.
And at 5 minutes, 30 seconds into flight, second stage engine continuing to perform well. Chamber pressure looks good. Seeing good stable hydraulic system pressure. Fuel and oxidizer feedline pressure is also looking very good. And vehicle body rates looking very stable. And 5 minutes remaining in the burn.
Miko was amazing. Yes, definitely. So over here you can see... Oh, why am I pointing at my screen? Okay, screen. Okay, so over here you can see all the orbital data. So the inclination and the apogee, altitude.
Now passing 6 minutes, 30 seconds into flight. Continuing this first burn of the second stage.
So...
Engine performance continues to look good, seeing stable feedline pressures on both fuel and oxidizer systems and good chamber pressure.
It's basically, it's waiting.
Now passing 7 minutes into flight. And now passing 7 minutes, 35 seconds into flight, seeing minor telemetry drop out, but telemetry has resumed and continue to see good performance on the AJ-10 engine, good feedline pressures on fuel and oxidizer systems, good hydraulic system pressure. Battery currents and voltages all remaining very stable throughout this first burn, and body rates on the second stage remaining very stable as well. Now passing 8 minutes into flight.
That's great. So the rocket is basically flying perfectly as it's supposed to. So a bit about the rocket tomorrow. Tomorrow the PSLV is not going to have the tiny extra boosters on the outside. It's just going to fly with the core stage alone. So gotta go. This was great. Okay, thank you. We'll talk later. Yeah, bye guys. Bye guys. And also, I'm on Patreon now, so if you like my work and want to support me, please go ahead, and the link will be in the description.
And at 8 minutes 54 seconds into flight, now approximately 2 minutes remaining in the first burn of the second stage. Continuing to see very good performance on the second stage engine. Very stable fuel and oxidizer feedline pressures, hydraulic system pressure. Helium bottle pressure decay profile appears to be within family.
So as you can see, it's still not orbital yet. As soon as the minus...
Now 9 minutes 30 seconds into flight.
It's in orbit, but right now it's still pushing ahead, and it's really close to orbit now, and yeah. It's on track.
Approximately 1 minute remaining until Miko 1.
Yes, actually 29 years, but the Delta indeed has been used 30 years. So after 30 years of service, this is its retirement flight. Last ever Delta II flight.
Now passing 10 minutes 20 seconds into flight. Seeing a slight decay in the thrust chamber pressure and fuel and oxidizer feedline pressures as to be expected for the later portion of the first burn. And standing by for engine cutoff in approximately 10 seconds. Now passing 11 minutes into flight, and we have Miko.
Yes.
Second stage engine cutoff. Body rates damping out well after the transients from the shutdown event.
Yay,
so there you heard the United Launch Alliance launch commentator, Patrick Moore, taking you through the first 11 minutes. As you said, Mick, a lot of work, still a lot to go.
Absolutely, Joshua. You know, the team has done a fantabulous job to get here today. I can't even speak. It's I'm just
that's how exciting it is.
Yeah, I'm emotional here and exciting, but there is still a lot to go to be done to get us to spacecraft separation. As we just heard, we had Miko 1, second stage engine cutoff number 1. We're entering a long coast now, and then we'll get ready for second stage start for about 6 seconds to put Isat on its final trajectory.
Yeah, in the meantime, we're going to send it back over to Stephanie to unpack more of the science and the research that we're doing as part of the ICE-Sat2 mission. Stephanie, back to you.
Thank you both. ICE-Sat2 is the next step in NASA's plan to study the cryosphere. Chris Gersh recently spoke with Deputy Project Scientist Tom Newman to discuss how ICE-Sat2 will measure the height of a changing Earth, one laser pulse at a time.
So Tom, NASA's been studying the cryosphere for a long time, and ICESat is really sort of the main mission in studying the cryosphere. Tell me a little bit about ICESat.
The first ICESat launched in 2003, and it was on orbit until 2009. The main purpose of ICESat was to measure changes in the ice sheets. Are they getting larger? Are they getting smaller? How are they changing? And the way it did that was with a laser altimeter. It sent out small pulses of laser light that bounced off the surface of the Earth and came back up to the spacecraft. By timing how long that light takes to do that round trip from the spacecraft to Earth and back again, we can figure out how far away or how near the surface of the Earth is. And by measuring the height of the ice sheet at the same place through time, you can measure whether it's growing and getting closer to the spacecraft or is it getting smaller. And what we found with the first ICE-Sat was that Greenland is changing quite a lot, particularly in the edges of the glacier, that it's losing a lot of mass there where the ice sheet's getting smaller and that water's being lost to the ocean and causing sea level rise.
Now we look at ICE-Sat, it's done a great job, the mission's over. And now we have ICE-Sat2.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happened between ICE-Sat and ICE-Sat2? I understand there was a bridge. You had to keep on taking measurements between the ICE-Sat and ICE-Sat2?
That's right. After the first ICE-Sat mission ended in 2009, we knew we had to keep monitoring how the cryosphere was changing for ice sheets and for sea ice. And ICE-Sat2 is on the horizon, but was quite a ways away at that point. So what NASA decided to do was to use an aircraft mission, which they called Operation Icebridge, to continue to monitor those places that were changing rapidly. They use the P-3 aircraft as well as the DC-8. They do about a month-long campaign or 2-month-long campaign each spring in the Arctic and a similar length campaign to monitor places in Antarctica. With an airplane, you can fly many instruments. So they use a laser altimeter, similar to what we use in space, as well as radars and cameras to measure those places in the cryosphere that are changing rapidly.
Any ground instruments that you use to measure the elevations?
You know, places like Greenland and Antarctica are huge. You can't really credibly cover much of that on the ground. They're simply too big. But a natural question is, how do you know that the measurements from the aircraft or from the spacecraft are correct? So what we've done is go to Antarctica, near the South Pole, where all of the ground tracks from ICE-Sat2 converge. ICE-Sat2 will be on orbit. It goes up to 88 degrees north and 88 degrees south around the Earth. So we went to 88 degrees south, and we took some high-precision GPS instrumentation to make a detailed survey of about 300 kilometers of the ice sheet. Now, that survey is going to be one of our main reference data sets. So when ICE-Sat2 passes overhead and gives us some data from that area, we can compare the two and see how we're doing. Similarly, Icebridge, the aircraft campaign, flies over that same stretch of Antarctica, so we can compare the ground-based to the airborne to the spacecraft.
Now, I understand ICE-Sat2 is a much better satellite and a much better instrument on board. Tell me the difference between ICE-Sat2 and then the original ICE-Sat mission.
You know, with the original ICE-Sat, we had never done that before, have a laser in space to measure changes in ice sheets, and we learned a ton. We learned that the main action is around the edges of the ice sheets, but as importantly, we also learned that we could monitor sea ice with that. And by measuring the height of sea ice and comparing it with the height of the ocean that you can see in these cracks in the sea ice, you can figure out how thick that sea ice is, how much is sticking up out of the ocean. And we didn't even know we could do that with the first ICE-Sat before it launched. So for ICE-Sat2, we use those lessons, and ICE-Sat2 will do a much better job of measuring changing glaciers around the edges where it's rough and it's steep, as well as measuring sea ice freeboard as that way to get at the thickness of the sea ice.
In addition to the cryosphere, I understand ICE-Sat2 is going to be taking elevations of a number of areas around the globe. What are some other things ICE-Sat2 can do?
So from the vantage point of space, you really see the whole planet. Although ICE-Sat2 is really designed to measure changes in the cryosphere, the ice sheets and sea ice, from the vantage point of space, you see forests. We'll measure the height of oceans, height of deserts, all over the whole planet. We have data products that cover each of those different types of surfaces. We have vegetation data products, ocean height, ice sheet height, sea ice, etc. The cryosphere is our primary objective, so the other targets are secondary, but we think they're going to be really useful for those communities.
So is it fair to say that with ICE-Sat and Icebridge and ICE-Sat2, will you be able to predict down the road? I mean,
let's mute it. So yeah, let's go over to the basically what the Delta 2. What was I gonna do? So yeah, that was the last Delta 2. Delta 2 will never fly again. Sad. No, but it will have to do 3 burns before it will go to a fiery death and burn up into the atmosphere. Yeah. So, what I was going to show you guys. Oh, look. No. I hate working with 2 screens. No, I was going to show you. I'm on Patreon now. No post yet. Made a page. And yeah, if you like my work, please consider becoming a Patreon and help me get better at this. I'm also currently doing a project which involves making a hybrid engine, which is gonna be for a school project, but I will post it on Patreon, definitely, for sure. Definitely, for sure. Wow, that's the same thing. No, I will definitely put it on Patreon, and I will keep it off Twitter, so I have something exclusive on Patreon. But yeah, if you like my work, please consider. And yeah, we have a great community here. We're still growing. Last time with the Vega launch was a great success. We had I believe the highest amount of people that watched live were 40, or were actually 70, 75 people, which is great. And yeah, I'm still using OBS. I'm kind of not, I haven't decided yet if I want to change broadcasting hardware or not, but yeah, I really enjoy it still. So yeah, and it's gonna show something. Oh yeah, I was gonna ULA. So next launch for ULA is probably gonna be a Atlas 5. I don't know where it's gonna go, but I don't know if it's going to be in Delta 4 Heavy or a Atlas 5, because there's still going to be a Delta 4 with a really secret payload going to the orbit. I was actually going to show you the press kit, but my internet doesn't. How many more subs do you need for the next level? What do you mean for next level? I need at least 100 subs before YouTube is gonna consider yeah, mission overview. Next level, I don't really know what's next level, but the yeah, as you can see, this is the basically the ground track where the rocket is gonna take. So right now it's somewhere around here probably, and so it will go down to Madagascar basically, and then do a little burn, separate the satellite, then it's gonna do a burn again above basically the border of Europe and Russia, and then it will separate the CubeSats, and then it will go down to over America again, and then basically it will burn up. It will do a deorbit burn and burn up in the atmosphere. I don't really have a next level for YouTube, but if I have over 100 subs, I can request YouTube to do something. Again, I should have a look at that, but I thought it was 100 subs. But hey, we're getting there. We're getting there. I'm proud of myself. I know a lot of stuff, so I know my rocket, so I'm pretty confident I can get there. And let's be very ambitious. We have 3 months left till the end of the year. Let's get 200 subs at the end of the year. I don't know if I can get there, but that's my goal. End of the year, 200 subs. 2,000 is a bit much, but yeah. Let's see if they still are rambling about the satellite. Yeah. And oh yeah, also what I've been doing is let me go to I've done the drone ship, the deck, and my work is also this. Oh no, I need to go into my Gmail. I'm gonna do it here. I don't want you to see all my emails. It's gonna go in downloads. I have a lot of crap in my computer. Yes, 200 is doable. Okay, let's set this goal 200 by the end of the year. Opening. Alfonso already got my files, and I am going to put them in a different format so everybody can get them, and I will put them up my on my site, and our website will be launched too. So yeah, I'll download this. Yeah, the website is looking better now. I hope it's gonna be okay. Yeah, a lot of things I'm doing, and basically launch streams are gonna be my future. Basically gonna be a bit of the future. I don't know if I'm gonna do build streams anytime soon, but I might. Yeah, I might do a H2P rocket stream, and I'm gonna build that rocket. That would be cool. Yeah, let's do that. Let's plan that in for future. I don't know when, but yeah. And is it downloaded? Has it been download? Let's save it here. Let's see it here. Yeah, this is my files. Yes, finally I can show them. They are still in A4 format, so we have the engines, the upper part of the rocket, then we have the fairing, we have the connectors and the lower part of the first stage, then we have the fuel lines for the outside, we have the second stage, and we have the rocket boosters, and I've simplified the attachments, so hopefully it's easier to attach boosters to the rocket, because I had all these tiny tubes but I couldn't even roll them, so I thought this is way simpler and it will look just as cool. So yeah, this is what I've done. And also, so yeah, I'm really proud of this. This actually is, this took a lot of work, all the tiny details on the fairing, and especially this, configuring this, took me a crap ton of time. And also something, but I need to go back to this. This is also something I worked on, and it's really huge. As you can see, it's like taking up my whole camera. If you know what size, then I hope you can still hear me, but I will show you what it looks like next to the other rockets. Like, they're right in front of it. Now you can't see them anymore. It's huge. Yeah. I'm really proud of my work. So, if you also want to support that, please consider going over to Patreon and support me. Hashtag self-promotion. So yeah, let's go back to the live stream. Still no coverage. Are you designing the rest of the? Yes, but it isn't really detailed, and it takes a lot of time to build it because it's so big. And I found someone who was working on it, but decided to not continue it. I found his files very useful, and I'm gonna use those to finish mine. And I'm planning it for the end of the year, so November, beginning of December, hopefully. So yeah, and excellent, yeah. We have still, let's see what time. So yeah, I can show you.
A great initial series of events. We've got a few more things to come. I'm now joined by Scott Messer, who is the United Launch Alliance Program Manager for NASA missions, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Scott, congratulations to you, and thanks for joining me this morning.
Thank you very much.
So tell me about the mission so far. Obviously, we're not done. Well, there's still more to come, but how have things gone so far? Has it been according to plan?
It has. Everything so far looks really well. The trajectory was good. All of the timing of events were well, and so far it's a very nominal mission. We're very excited.
Awesome. And so what's coming up now? Obviously, we say we're not done yet. What else is there left to do this morning?
Well, so we've got one more coast. one more firing of the second stage. And
yeah, as you can see, it's also rolling around
the
its
ISAT mission.
And
then following that, we'll have another burn and short coast, and then we'll separate the P-pods.
So it's sort of doing a barbecue roll.
Again, everything is looking good so far.
Awesome. And so what does this mission mean for ULA at large? Obviously, every mission is special, but in another sense, like this is getting the job done, business as usual. So what does this mean for ULA?
Yeah, so clearly with the last launch of the Delta II, this will be the end of an era, and we're certainly proud of the history and the record of the Delta II vehicle with 155 launches under its belt when we finish this one. It's had quite a record, and of course nothing happens without the people on the Delta II program. So we're very proud of the people, and we stand on the shoulders of giants tonight. With that, ULA presses on. This is our 130th successful launch, and so a lot of good stuff to come.
Awesome. And so thinking about the Delta II retiring, it's not the only rocket in the ULA family of rockets. So what's the future look like for ULA and providing service to spacecraft customers?
Yeah, so certainly we've got a full manifest next year and the rest of this year, actually, with our Atlas and Delta IV rockets. And we, got Volcn coming online in 2020. That'll be a very exciting new vehicle, and a lot of good stuff, exciting stuff for ULA coming up.
Awesome, Scott. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Again, we'll continue to monitor the progress of the spacecraft as we continue towards spacecraft separation. Congratulations to the ULA team, and Stephanie, we'll send it back to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joshua and Scott. Partnerships are very important. to all NASA missions, and ICE-Sat2 is no exception. Joining us now is Franklin Fitzgerald to talk about the benefit of partnerships with companies like Northrop Grumman.
Thank you, Stephanie. As Stephanie said, we're talking about partnerships, and Northrop Grumman has a partnership with NASA with the ICE-Sat2 on several different levels. Tell us about them, Joe.
So we are responsible for the spacecraft bus. That's part of the LeoStar 3 product line that we make in Gilbert, Arizona. We also were responsible for many of the components that came together to make that bus, including the tanks from California and heat pipes from Maryland. Also the guidance and navigation and control CYRU that Northrop Grumman makes as well. We're pretty involved in that.
Now, this bus called the LeoStar 3, right, is basically the infrastructure, the body of the ICE-Sat. And this is a tried and true satellite for Northrop Grumman, is it not?
That's correct. We've made quite a number of these buses over the past, specifically for NASA. These are the middle-size science, high-pointing buses. Specifically, the satellite is designed, the satellite bus, to point the instrument. So we have the wheels and the tanks and the propulsion that allow us to point the science instrument exactly where the scientists want it to go.
Speaking of tried and true, the Delta II vehicle, you've had some partnerships with ULA on that. Tell us about that.
We have actually. Northrop Grumman and its predecessors have been making the GEMS, the graphite epoxy motors, for many years. Actually, it turns out that the four that we just saw jettisoned after launch that went very well. We've made, I think, about 1,000 of those strap-on boosters.
Now, partnerships right now and into the future. Can you tell us a little bit about them before we get off?
Sure. We have and continue to be part of the cargo resupply mission for the International Space Station. That's probably one of our biggest efforts and has been highly successful. We also, though, are looking forward to the next version of that, the next contract for that's coming up, as well as we have and continue to make these large to medium science spacecraft. Currently, we launched Landsat 8, what was called LDCM, and now we're going to be working on, as we go forward, Landsat 9 and the JPSS mission.
Joe Whitaker, Northrop Grumman, Chief Engineer for the Space Systems Group, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you, Franklin.
Stephanie, back to you.
Thank you, Franklin. Our Tori McClendon had the opportunity to speak with NASA's Director of Earth Flight Projects, Cathy Richardson. She was able to fill us in about why ICE-Sat2 is so important and how it fits in with NASA's other Earth science programs.
Thanks, Stephanie. So, Cathy, you oversee the Earth Science Projects Division at Goddard. Can you talk a little bit about your role?
Sure. So I'm the Deputy Program Manager, which means that at Goddard Space Flight Center, I'm responsible for all of the Earth science missions that are managed out of Goddard. So we have multiple missions. We have missions that are just in formulation, as well as implementation and operations. And of course, ICE-Sat2 falls under our program office.
So of course, your role does not end at launch. Can you talk a little bit about what happens after the spacecraft gets into orbit?
Right, so the spacecraft will have about 60 days where it's going through its commissioning phase. Once that happens, it'll go into its operational phase. And then we have a whole other organization that makes sure that they take care of it and that it's runs safely on orbit, and then it provides all of the data that it needs to. We also have an organization that collects all of the data, processes the data, archives it, and then distributes it to multiple users across the world.
So this mission has been, what, 10 years in the making?
At least 10 years. We've been working on it for quite some time, yes. And we've had multiple people who've worked on it for 10 years, even longer, trying to make sure that the whole thing comes together well.
And you yourself had a different role in this mission earlier on, is that right?
That's right. So for about 3 years, I was the instrument project manager, which meant that I was responsible for Atlas, which is the only instrument on ICE-Sat2. So that was really exciting for me.
So how excited are you to finally be here?
Absolutely very excited. So not only do I get to be here because of my current role in the program office, being able to oversee ICE-Sat2, but it certainly is very personal for me since I spent so much time working with the team and being able to launch. Seeing it all happen today is just really exciting.
I can only imagine. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
With that, we'll go back to you, Stephanie.
Has today's launch made you want to learn more about NASA? Well, Kennedy Space Center recently launched a new podcast series to give you behind-the-scenes look at what goes on. Today's launch director, Tim Dunn, and launch commentator, Mick Waltman, joined in on the fun.
I am the launch director for the Launch Services Program.
And so, sounds like a pretty cool job.
It does.
It is. One of my favorite shows growing up was Star Trek, the
Star
original.
Trek. Awesome.
The original.
You know, awesome.
Unfortunately, you will hear Tim wanted to be a certain character. I believe his name was Captain Kirk.
Captain Kirk. Who didn't want to be Captain Kirk?
That's a good question.
Well, that was me. I wanted to be Scotty.
It's all rockets all the time. Saddle up for our rocket roundup in this month's episode.
We are now 38 minutes after the successful launch of the Delta II carrying ICE-Sat2. Let's go back to Joshua and Mick to carry us through the on-orbit milestones.
Man, some good-looking guys in that Rocket Ranch promo.
Yeah, I think Tim and I look really good there.
Oh,
but,
it's only because I was out of frame. I didn't want to steal anything from you.
But you know, Josh, you made that really fun. I think that's a great way to get space information out to the public and share. And I'll tell you, Tim and I had a great time doing that podcast with you, and we're looking forward to seeing that and how it gets out and enthusiastic, excitement for people.
Yeah, that's something that I think people may not know just about engineers in general, about people who work here in general. People probably have a perception, I hope they have a perception, that NASA is a great place to work, and when you get around guys like you and Tim Dunn, the energy is infectious.
I appreciate that.
You can't hide it, man.
I appreciate that.
It's something that we love, and it gets me fired up, and it gets me excited to be here.
I tell you, we talked about teamwork earlier. I appreciate you saying that. Tim and I get very excited about the rockets we work with and the team we work with. It does take a team, and we talked about that, to do everything in this business. And being part of the Launch Services Program team and the United Launch Alliance team and the teams that launch these missions for the NASA agency is just really exciting. It's a passion we all have. And I think if you visit us at Launch Services Program or anybody that's in this business, one of the things you will see is that passion and that positive aura around them, because they love their job. I mean, we love getting up and coming to work every day to do just exactly what we did today, which was get ICE-Sat2 on its way and get this final Delta II lifted off. As I said, it was emotional. You and I were talking a little bit off camera, and I'm still feeling a little nervous waiting for spacecraft separation, but watching that final Delta II liftoff was just amazing. This week, Tim has actually been running around at all of our launch readiness reviews, talking to everybody that's here, asking them what their Delta number is. We talked a little bit about that. I think Stephanie mentioned that, the vehicles have been sequentially numbered since they started in the 60s. Right. And so Tim's been asking. So my number is Delta 294.
294. And that's the whole Delta family. It's not just Delta 2, just to make sure it's clear to our viewers.
That's correct. That's the Delta family dating back from 1960 to present. And 294 was the ISAT chipset mission, which was the beginning of the ISAT-2 mission that we talked about.
There's not that much going on.
But on our team, we have some folks who've been working a lot longer than I have. Mr. George Lucian, who's part of the NASA engineering team, he was Delta 33 back in 1965. On the ULA team, our anomaly chief that you heard tonight working things with the team, Mr. Dave McFarland from ULA. He was Delta 132 at 1977. And, one of my mentors, George was one of my mentors, George Lucian, but another one of my mentors is still active with us today, is Darren Bedell. Darren was Delta 178 in 1986. It was the beginning of a career that he's still with us, doing market analysis for Launch Services Program, finding new business, advisory work, and all kinds of things that keep Launch Services Program moving forward. So, especially those three gentlemen, I want to thank. You heard Scott say standing on the shoulders of giants. Those are definitely three that I admire and have built my career on. So I want to ask Josh, what is your number?
Sure. Yeah, it was interesting. The first meeting I was in this week, this has been something Tim's been talking about all week, and I really wasn't sure what the number meant at first because I'm new to the Delta family.
Yes.
So this is my first time really working launch, especially in capacity like this where I'm on console, and so I'm a 381. So Delta 2. Flight 155 launching ISAT-2 is my first Delta mission, so I'm a 381.
Well, you know what? As Tim said, the Delta family is large. Even with this final mission that we just had, I want to welcome you to the Delta family.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
As a 381, and as a token of my appreciation, and hopefully you have many more launches. I think I'd like to pass on my Delta 2 pin
I appreciate that.
To you, and welcome you to the Delta II family, my friend.
Hey, Mick, I appreciate this very much. I can't tell you how great it's been to work with you this week and getting ready for this launch. Congratulations to you. I know that you actually are a part of NASA's Launch Services Program. We'll kind of dive into what you all do in a little bit later on in the show. Stay tuned later in the show. Not only do we have, here in about 4 minutes or so, we have the second burn of the second stage to get ready for spacecraft separation. On screen there, you see an animation of the second stage and the spacecraft there, still on their way. I believe that spacecraft has now, we launched going nearly due south. We have, I believe we've already passed over Antarctica, and we're now coming up towards Africa. So pretty interesting to think about the orbital path of this.
Yeah, we're hoping that, or we should be seeing when we get up to this T+47 minute, starting up the second stage engine and then heading over Madagascar for separation.
Yeah, so can you talk about why we have multiple second stage burns? That was one of my, again, being new to the family, you got to ask these kinds of questions, learning about orbital mechanics and things. Why have multiple burns of the second stage? Why not just fire one single burn and get where you're going?
Yeah, so tonight's mission was a two-burn mission for the primary spacecraft ICE-Sat2. The first burn got us into that initial orbit of circular/polar orbit for us, right? This 7-second burn coming up is going to be that last little burn that gives us the velocity and boost to get ISAT on its way, making some slight inclination adjustments to that 92-degree inclination.
The second stage engine will ignite to start the second burn.
We're listening now to an update that's coming in.
The second burn will
I believe that's Patrick Moore's voice. He's giving us an update. We're about 3 minutes away from that second stage burn. So we're just trying to make sure we're staying up to speed on the updates coming through.
Yeah, so that second stage burn will provide that last little bit to get ISAT to where it's go. And then, of course, as you talked about earlier, we'll have 2 more burns. One to get into an inclination change to deploy our secondary payloads, our CubeSats. And then once those deploy, we will do a 4th burn over the Pacific Ocean, South Pacific area, to bring the second stage back in for disposal so we don't leave anything out there floating. You know, all those are concerned about space junk. We want to bring that back so it's not there.
Absolutely, yeah. So again, interesting path, flying nearly due south with some minor adjustments with these second stage burns. We're taking a path. I think Stephanie mentioned this earlier, where we're going to cross over the same piece of land with our spacecraft ICE-Sat2, the exact same piece of land every 91 days, which requires a very precise orbit.
Yes, and Delta II will provide that. I have total faith in this vehicle and what it's done over the years, and we will put the spacecraft where they need to be able to perform that science. And I think it's just amazing that we can see every part of the Earth in that short period of time and take measurements down to the millimeter level of our ice caps. And that's just, you know, we enjoy the rockets, but the science behind it is also exciting. And those guys that work the science missions on the spacecraft spend a lot of years of their lives putting this together and doing it, and it's just amazing to be part of that group to get these things going and this history that we're putting together for Mother Earth.
Yeah, so the orbital path today will take us over the eastern part of Africa. We deploy our spacecraft near Madagascar, and then we'll travel over the eastern part of Europe, and then we'll travel up and over Earth, and actually the end of this cycle will travel just to the west of where we are here. So again, the orbit jogs X number of miles to the west every orbit, and so eventually 91 days later it will pass over this specific spot again.
Yeah, we're basically flying north to south pole, right, and we're taking advantage of the Earth turning, and so as that does that, we stay in that polar orbit, and Earth turns, and so we get that full coverage of the Earth every 91 days. I think that's amazing. We're about 40 seconds away, I think, from second stage start, and we'll be listening to ULA's commentator Patrick Moore bring us through this as we get ready for this final burn.
Hydraulic system pressure is now coming up and standing by for ignition.
Again, you're watching an animation on your screen of the second stage in spacecraft.
And we have ignition on the second stage. Chamber pressure looks good. And
Yay,
standing by for cutoff.
burn, baby, burn.
And we have engine cutoff.
Awesome. So good calls there.
Hydraulic pressure now coming back down.
A startup and a cutoff. Obviously, the animation there, you see that as well. Again, just a great picture to kind of resemble what's going on up in space.
So
thankful to have those animations to help you get a chance to really kind of experience what's going on up there. Mick, we've talked about this orbit around Earth, but there's a lot that goes in beyond the teams that are here on the ground for launch, which are still actively working to make sure that this is a success. There's a lot of teams that are still going to be working past today to make sure that the spacecraft is successful. So tell us about what's involved nationally or globally in taking care of a spacecraft.
So we talked about those teams that are involved: Northrop Grumman, Goddard Space Flight Center. Once the ICE-Sat gets on orbit and gets its solar arrays deployed, the teams will be taking over. There are some of them located in Maryland and some in Virginia. And they will be monitoring the health of ICE-Sat and prepping it to get started and commissioned up to start doing its science work. So as we talked about, not only a big team to take care of getting launch off today, a team to get the spacecraft on orbit and maintain that for the next 3 years.
Yeah, and I know that we had a good laugh. We were talking about some of the telemetry we get from around the Earth. There's a few sites around the globe that we rely on to help us track our spacecraft. And we had an incident with an animal not too long ago. Can you talk about that? Tell our viewers.
Yeah, so actually one of our sites, the Heart of Beastock site that we'll be using tonight to track the vehicle, we tend to send a live video from there to make sure everything's working. And during the JPSS-1 mission, we actually had a gazelle type come up to one of our cameras and kind of give us a look and make sure everything was working there this evening. And the team ran those tests earlier this week with Heart of Beastock and saw some wildlife out there also. So that's a pretty cool part of launching rockets and being part of the team.
Yeah, and I believe you said Heart of Beastock is in the area of Madagascar. Is that correct?
Yes. Okay. So.
Sorry to put you on the spot, but I feel like that was what we talked about.
Yes.
So we just got a word.
And we're starting to see, actually here in the MDC, Joshua, behind us, some video coming through of the ICE-Sat2 spacecraft on the front of the rocket.
We're hoping to be able to have the spacecraft separation live for you. It depends on the signal.
Absolutely.
It's not a simple thing to transmit a video back from space when you're traveling in the order of 17,500 miles an hour. So that's not to be taken for granted. But that's coming up in about 2 minutes. I believe we're expecting to hear word and hopefully get to see that spacecraft separate.
And actually, there's some live video now from the front of the Delta II second stage, and hopefully we can maintain that signal. That will be really, really cool to see.
Yeah, so we are expecting things to get a little rowdy behind us when we see spacecraft separation or get confirmation. There are some other control rooms where they'll be more focused, kind of making sure that we get through spacecraft health, which doesn't come until later in the countdown. So if it does get a little noisy, that's what's going on. Is it's excitement.
Yeah, this is like I said earlier tonight. This is what it's all about right here: is the spacecraft and getting them on orbit to start performing their science. So this is really nice to be able to see the ICE-Sat2 spacecraft on the front of the second stage as it's in space, getting ready for final separation here in about a minute and 20 seconds.
Now approaching.
Yeah, and again, just to preview some of the other parts of the countdown or part of the launch sequence that will be coming up with the flight, we'll see spacecraft separation. A little bit later, we'll have the solar arrays deploying. And we'll also have a third burn of the second stage to get us in position to deploy the CubeSats, which is a big part. And then after that point, we're hearing we're going to get spacecraft health report, and that's when we're hoping to really kind of declare victory over the entire flight today.
Yeah, absolutely. Spacecraft separation is just another milestone. The teams will still be focused, waiting to hear the initial state of the spacecraft and make sure everything's good. So. I think the teams are looking like they're all standing up and getting a little excited here. I think everybody's on edge, still focused on what's going on. But we're getting closer and closer here to spacecraft separation, and glad to see that we still have live video.
Yeah, we're about 20 seconds out now, so we'll kind of just stand by and watch and listen.
And standing by for spacecraft SEP shortly.
Yay! Separation.
And we have good indication of separation
Awesome,
of the ICE-Sat2 spacecraft.
Awesome. That is great.
Great.
That's what we want to see.
Awesome.
That motion there you see on your screen is the spacecraft drifting away from the second stage. So that looks good. Obviously, we'll get full reports later, but definitely like a lot of people breathing another sigh of relief. There's several of those that happened today.
It's just another milestone. We still have a little bit more to go.
Yes,
And
yes,
like we said,
yay.
verify that solar panels are out and get that state of health. As you had mentioned earlier, they want to get into that light, 24-hour light, and be ready to go. So we're waiting to see that. We see the teams at the Remote Launch Control Center, NASA's launch manager Tim Dunn and his team celebrating the separation of ICE-Sat2 there. That's a very historic moment for this final Delta II.
Yeah. And
So, yeah. That was it. Final Delta II launch. I hope you enjoyed. Awesome hangout with everybody. Be sure to tune in tomorrow, and if you'd like to support me, go to Patreon. And yeah, that's it for today. Tune in tomorrow for the PSV Coralone launch, launching 2 satellites from India. And yeah, that was it. I'll go out at Asha to the stars.